First of all, thank you to the audience for showing up because it's a Friday afternoon. So resilience is exactly what we need. So first of all, the future of finance. Very interesting topic that we're talking about today. So if we sit and think about the conference and we think about what we've heard, the future of finance is no longer just about banks. It's about ecosystems. It's no longer just about tech. It's actually about trust. So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about how we're going to unlock it. You've heard lots of things in the conference, and we want to bring that all together. Is it about speed? Is it about instant payments, faster payments? Well, I have a panel with me that has all the answers. You heard in the intro. They can answer everything. I'm just the moderator, so I'm just sitting here today. So we want to unpack this topic a little bit with you today. So let's start with some introductions so that you know who you're talking to. So I'm Chantal Moritz. I'm a partner at PIPC. I've been involved in some of these industry transformations. I've seen some of the lessons learned. So I've seen how cool the tech is. I've also seen how we can do things, fantastic things, and also we can make some mistakes. So it's about being honest with ourselves. So let's introduce our panel. And as we start this conversation, maybe give your perspective, your one-liner on what do you think the future of finance really means. Let's start with you, yeah?
Thank you, Chantal. A pleasure to be with you this afternoon. So my name is Leo Lippes. I'm the chief executive of Lippes Advisors, a Berlin, Germany-based payments consulting firm. And yeah, as I'm sure you can tell from my accent, I did grow up in the U.S., so please don't hold that against me. I've been working in the payments industry for nearly 30 years, and I've seen a huge amount of evolution over that time. Everything from back when I started in the years back in the 1990s, where we're still, the big issues were in check versus air, right? We've obviously come a long way since then. And you've also asked us, Chantal, to give some initial thoughts to what is the future of finance. So, the idea, I think, that having the speed, accessibility, transparency, lower cost, all these issues that we've been dealing with, I think it's really transforming people's lives. And it has the power to transform people's lives. And so that's where I can live in the curtains for. But like any good consultant, I outsourced my answer. So I asked my favorite AI, and what's the future of finance, right? In one sentence. Now, I will warn you, it's a very long sentence. Yeah. And my AI tells the future of finance is a seamlessly interconnected AI-driven ecosystem where digital trust, decentralized assets, and intelligent automation converge to create a faster, more inclusive, and transparent financial system built around embedded services and real-time data flows. Now, I think what it really does is it takes every buzzword around your industry and packs it in your own sentence. Other than that, I just wrote that down.
You want the same thing done, Stu. So, I look forward actually to the conversation with you and my peers up here about which one of these buzzwords really matter and how it is they can help shape up.
Yes, I understand. And it's you, Richard.
Sheesh. I've only been like 17 years with the industry. Not outsource finance. Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully it's not degree rich. We can see the energy going. My name is Richard. I am the MD for Network International. Network International is the leading enabler of payments out from Middle East and Africa. What we do is we stand as the technology partner to a lot of the financial services providers, banks, non-banks, MNOs in end-to-end pay. So we have a different vantage point to it. The challenge is that these institutions are trying to serve and deliver to the market. And I think for us, the hope, maybe not so much AI, is we continue to do a lot more work on XE. Digital payments is easy, right? Making sure that there's a lot more people that are able to transact digitally. And then the second part to that is that we get smarter, right? There's a lot of data that's out there that we can harvest as people interact with the system, and we can start delivering new solutions that solve their problems. And I'll go with faster as the third, but safer, right? We know as digital thing evolves, so that there is So how do we create an ecosystem in trust is high because safety is high? And I think that is the one hope that we can all like sit behind. And we can abstract payments because at the end of the day, nobody goes to ShopRite to pay. They're going there for groceries, right? Nobody books a trip just to pay the trip. They want to go on your trip. Payments should be sitting in the back, serious, safe, and that's what Lex does.
Sam, thank you so much. Let's talk to is it the regulator? What do we classify you as? James, maybe you should rather introduce.
So that thank you for the so I'm James Thomas. I am the technical director for the payment ecosystem modernization at the SARB, which first of all is because I'm not the regulator. I don't represent the National Payment System Department, and any of my thoughts should not be seen as directing honesty. But I have ideas. So I'm actually one of the new kids on the block with payments, but we're learning very rapidly the way I learned to swim, having to learn to swim or drown. So we catching up quickly. And thoughts about the future of finance, I think if we have to project forward, it would be something we haven't seen to some extent. The future is indeterminate as to the potential that exists. I think we're going to create core and middle mile infrastructure that will enable a community, the audience, to take it to new levels, to innovate and to adapt and adopt, to bring real value to a much broader community that is serving up to that. So to some extent, you could say the future is here because it's starting. You're seeing the excitement. You've heard some of the comments and keynotes. And as per the tagline of the conference, forging ahead together, we are collectively creating that future of finance.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And as the audience can see, there is no one clear definition. So if you came here to say, this is the future of finance, I think the one thing you need to realize that it's not just about speed. It's about trust. There are so many dimensions to it. And I think that is what is critically important. And also, the future is now. We're modernizing, but how do we take modernization and build the momentum behind it? And that is what we need to make real. So then let's unpack that a little bit. That is the most important thing. How do we take all of these trends? Because there's lots of things. We heard Andy speak on Monday about this digital stack, and we've all heard about it. You take payments, you look at the fraud elements, you also take identity, you put it all together, and it becomes this perfect storm of how you actually unlock this whole digital community. But which of these trends, because if you look at South Africa, we're doing quite a lot. The SARB's doing a lot. If we think about what Pradeep also shared this morning, what everyone's sharing, there's a lot we've done. So we flipped the switch. We're doing the right things. Are we on the right track? But maybe these things we shouldn't be doing or we should be doing more of. So let's take that step back. Leo, you shared a lot of global perspective yesterday as well. But let's take it in context of this topic. Can you delve a little bit more into that?
Well, with pleasure. First thing, I think the focus first on sort of the short-term trends that we can see. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the longer horizons as well. The short-term trends, this was covered quite thoroughly yesterday morning upstairs in the plenary, with the impact of geopolitics, right? So we're seeing obviously huge changes in global, huge changes. We're seeing changes in global trade flows. We're seeing changes in the perception of South Africa. We're seeing changes, I think, in the way in which payment flows are happening as a result of what we're about. But I think that's those are short term as well as a long term. That's something that those pressures I don't think are going to abate for some time to come. The next thing I'd say is customer demands are changing. This has been something that's been happening for a long time in response to the ongoing digitalization, the ongoing automation of many things in society, and as a result of that, I think consumer demands are simply shifted, and that's probably a good thing. After all, our expectation is to see change. The same is true of technological innovation. I'm not going to dwell on that. There are plenty of other people at the input talk far more comfortably about that than I can. But certainly as users of technology, as people who as well see the way in which it's changing our lives, right? It's very easy to imagine that works. But when I get down to then the payment-specific issues, right, there are two that I actually really want to highlight. One is open banking, or accessibility, and the way in which, the initiation of payments by third parties has been changing the nature of payments and nature of finance more broadly. We're seeing that not only in payments, but in banking, in for finance or areas as well. So we see that across the spectrum, financial services, insurance. And then related to that, but not strictly speaking part of it, is the entry of non-banks and other types of payment service or payment services providers into the industry, whether they're MNOs, whether they're wallet providers, whether they're straight up non-bank fintech company, and so on and so forth. But the impact they're having around the world has been dramatic, whether it's in China, whether it's in India, whether it's in Europe. The list goes on and on and on. So that's why I'd say those are the long-term forces. Those have been building for Fabric. Those are the short-term forces that have been building perhaps for the last 5 years or so. Then there are the long-term ones. I think continued technological innovation, geopolitics, proper, and AI. It seems pretty dumb now, right? It's just three buzzwords together into a clever sentence, right? As I just read off.
And I actually wanted that yesterday.
So, but nevertheless, if another 5-10 years from now, I think its capabilities are not to be underestimated.
Definitely. And I think looking at these global examples are phenomenal, but we have to bring it back home because Africa, necessity is what actually drives innovation. It's the inclusion, it's all these kind of things that makes it real. So Richard, I think you've seen a lot of it, looking at the things that impact people's daily lives. So do you want to delve into that a little bit?
Yeah, and thank you, Chairman Chantal. So you're quite right. The evolution in technology is moving at speeds that are just to an extent unheard. But what we've seen across Africa is a desire to decompose some of these traditional financial services products to meet the needs of the markets they serve. So if you think about where mobile money started, it was about access, right? And what the MNOs have done is they looked at access as how do we create a live financial services product that we can deliver as close as possible to those marginalized communities. And in that, they achieved an infrastructure size scale so big that they disrupted what traditional banks used to offer in those markets. And speed is coincidental. But what we see is they've been able to enable other ecosystems now, right? Because of those wallets that are now in the hands of those people in the remote areas, they've enabled remittance capabilities. So now the Tories, the enterprises, the mama honeys came in and they're now moving money cross-border from South Africa to that very individual that is in a remote community and thereby accessing them. What we're seeing them do now is enabling what we see as the traditional ways of transact. So I can transfer from my wallet to your wallet. I can transfer from my wallet to your account and vice versa. And the national payment operators or the regulators of those markets are seeing the value in this, and they're inviting them closer to the domestic switches. They say, you know what, this is so big and so important to how people in our market transact and access the economy that it is now integral to that national financial switch. So they're offering interoperability there. What we're doing now is just offering the form factor. So the exercise of taking that same small wallet and allowing it now to transact across border. So they're linking card out. And they're now slowly accessing through card digital payments ecosystems. The virtual card, we're talking about real paid. But it was through that infrastructure capability that was enabled by the MNOs. And then what we see is a concerted effort to contribute solely the problems that the communities face. And I think you said at the beginning, we as South Africa, and Stuart Van Haycock in the previous session said it as well. You know, we're challenging the fact that we have, well, great opportunities and third world challenges. So the exercise of true access and removing the post box use of our cards is still something that we need to pick, right? He created this example of he's here in Santed, but just 4 kilometers just across the M1 in Arizona. And those communities are looking at what are the products that are relevant to us. And I think while they might have a bank account, it is not their first when they transact. Cash is stored it. So we haven't done the work of giving access. One that resonates with them, one that is to the new NPSD head point, price sensitive, right? That is resonating with where they want to go. And if you look at what Linesh said from Visa, the evolution, agentic AI shopping from your pick, those are coming. They're going to come in easy and we'll continue to use them, but they will be so much better if they're used by so many. So the scale is currently this, where agentic AI will work. But if we drive to inclusion, right? So that's what we see.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people in the audience can resonate with that. And they're like, guys, we know what you're talking about. We've been having this conversation for so long. So we get it. You guys, we know the global examples, but are we doing enough to make it real? And what are we doing to actually see that dial turn? So this is where, James, you're in the hot seat. So the Salmon loves the hot seats. We're realizing that. So let's ask you about that. Let's see how we're going to make it real, because besides giving us lots of acronyms, so we've got NPU, we got PEN, we got UPP, what are all the different things? So maybe explain to us what this is, what are we trying to do, and we understand the vision, everyone buys into the vision, but is it just tech that we're deploying? Is it speed that we're deploying? What are we going to do?
Excellent. Thank you, Sandal. So I think latching on to both Vera and Alicia, there's this continuous balancing act between where we are, where we need to go, between those that are served and those that are underserved, global trends, geopolitics, and sovereign risk to be mitigated, financial sovereignty to be established, both domestically and regionally. There's a lot of factors. There are opportunities and participants who want to partake in taking those opportunities to the masses and breach that gap between the has and the has not, to drive to financial inclusion, where it's beyond just having access, but actually access to services that leverage the data that was spoken about yesterday, session next door, to the benefit of the consumer without introducing risk and sacrificing privacy and all of those things. So what are we doing? First and foremost, it starts with not the tech, but the regulatory framework, the construct that will keep everyone safe. In this morning's keynote, Deep referred to highways and eventually off-ramps and then the double roads to facilitate travel from A to B. But when you partake in that infrastructure, there are rules of the road. The left or the right-hand side, the speed limit, this roadworthiness of the vehicle. Should you be on this road? Should you facilitate commuting? All of those things are critical. It's not just about tech. And I think it's a critical thing that we shouldn't get infatuated with technology and think that's the silver bullet. And after the fact, try and close the gaps, which some other countries, jurisdictions that we are referencing for our program, like India and Brazil, are finding out massive growth and expansion on distant payments, but then also significant growth in exposure to fraud. We have the luxury of being somewhat late to the game, but the upside is we're able to learn from. So once you have the regulatory constraint, you want to put down digital public payment infrastructure. Right. So digital public digital infrastructure as a nation state, lots of countries are doing that. Our domain isn't at the global level in South Africa. The presidency are doing great work, and you should check out Zanzi and the initiatives at that level. So we're at a very interesting point in our history in South Africa where things are coming together, even regionally. I think some of the examples, we should just refer to it. static movements. So things are coming together, but specific to our domain, our span of control is the financial ecosystem, specifically the payment ecosystem. So public digital payment infrastructure, which we're establishing through the integration and collaboration with Pay Inc. and SARB, and then the periphery campaigns, because it's not just about being able to facilitate that payment process. It's about controlling. It's about making the necessary data available so that it can be harvested for good, right? But also to protect, to enhance digital identity, interoperability, new standards, QR Plus standard, barcode scanning, NFC tap, access mechanisms that give us greater possibilities. Leveraging that data in a way that can be communicated to those underserved markets so they understand this value of sharing their data. They have control over sharing that data. And if they do so, an improved level of service, credit, and opportunities can be extended. So it's about establishing that ecosystem and evolving it, because what is novel today will become commoditized. And that public infrastructure is about optimizing the commoditized items and then providing a platform for the next wave of innovation by the participants. So that's what we're trying to establish. That's what we're building. That's why we call it a payment ecosystem modernization. It's not just about renewing our RTGS at the core. We started there and then we step back from the screen and say, is that really got to be used by that? And the answer is no. No one would notice. It would run on better technology with lower risk and sustainability, but it wouldn't improve anyone's life. But maybe our colleagues will have to operate the current system as slowly what it would pay for. That's not really the case. It's a fundamental change facilitated.
I see this is where it gets interesting. So this is where we're going to ask some interesting questions. So audience, remember, I can ask any of those difficult questions. So please put them in and then let me ask them. But the first one,
We've let them out there.
the audience also wants to know, and who's this we talking about? Is the soul going to do it and just tell everyone what to do? So who's the we before I go into it? This is just an adult question.
It's the absolutely that anyone is go opted into this journey.
We're facilitators and perhaps the initiators to some extent. We're also playing catch up with other people who have initiated, but it's becoming a collaborative journey.
Great answer. Great answer. And all the hard work that has been done before, because there's also a lot of us, and I also use that to say that have done a lot of groundwork, like the pay shop and all those kind of things, and feel proud of the work that they've done. Also know there's things that could have been done better, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And are those things going to be taken into consideration?
Absolutely. So it's how to leverage what is great of what we've already got, because let's make no mistake, there's a lot of good in people, in infrastructure, in services, in the served community. And then there are great ideas. And as we build some of these, there are going to be greater ideas to go forward. So it's just about facilitating that evolution.
And enlighten to evolution.
And definitely better. Get everyone to action. So Leo, now that everyone's in action, tell us, what are the things, fundamentals, if we're trying to do this? You've seen quite a few of these deployments globally. What are the things that we should get right and what shouldn't we get wrong? So try to do this, because if you look, even a lot of you have seen that pinwheel, it's scary because there's a lot of things that needs to be established in a short period of time. So what are your thoughts?
So the first thing I would say is that there's no one right way to do it. There are lots of right ways to do it. When you look around at the most successful deployments of data systems around the world, there's no consistent. There's no the one consistent. I should start the one consistent thing that one does see, right, is clarity of roles and responsibilities, and then knowing that from the outset, of knowing which role, which stakeholder needs to play that he could input in that ecosystem
that James was just describing is extremely important. There's clear roles. Second thing I'd say that we see that's a common across all of them are clear objectives. Those are often set then at a government level. They're often being said, this came up in the session yesterday morning as well, right? So forgive me about repeating myself a little there. So having that transparency of objectives, and then of course, finding compromises among the various stakeholders so that everybody actually has the right incentives in place to create that ecosystem. Because as I think James was rightly pointing out, just having the technology in place is not enough. Just having the regulation in place isn't enough either. You need to have the financial incentives in place too. Because what that's going to do is it ensures that banks, non-banks, and non-bank providers of all sorts of users, merchants, everybody involved has to have the right motivation, has to get something out of it, right? Because if any one of those stakeholders is not on the trending, right, it's going to derail at some point.
Yeah. So on that point of derailing, I know there are a few people who think, oh, if we let these non-banks, and no offense, but moderate happens to anything. But these non-banks are completely going to derail, and they are going to bring all this risk into the system because, you know, the banks have kept us safe for so many years and they are trusted. What are we going to do when these chaotic players come in? So, Richard, I'm not saying you're a chaotic player, but what I am saying is, what are the things that we need to take into consideration? Because I know it's taken a really long time for everyone to have an equal rights, but what are the risks? And you need to understand there's a lot of risks, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. But what is your perspective?
So we are known to cause a bit of chaos every now and then, but what is it?
As long as you own, that's fine to tell you.
And in the representation of the non-banks, right? And I think South Africa, if you look at AHAM, the number of non-banks that approach us looking to offer some sort of niche product into the ecosystem, and the challenge is that they have to go through before they had that regulated right to do that. Fintechs that are either following the alliance banking approach, but it gets quite blurry, gray, and suddenly it dies down because the process in itself is like here, right? And these institutions, like, they spend quite a lot of money, right? There's a lot of investment that goes into this innovative exercises. And if you gauge and assess the products that they look to offer, they have a place in the market. The thing that they're trying to do will push the top. So, we've been streaming on the outside saying, great financial inclusion for the consumer. There has to be inclusion at the industry level. So we're quite excited and appreciative of the efforts that we see the regulator putting in place and the objectives of pioneering itself and opening up the ecosystem. So yes, there's going to be some risk, right? While we innovate around products, the prudent financial management might not exist. The understanding of anti-money laundering might not exist. The understanding of the reporting requirements might not exist. So when we hear that there are capabilities that are being built that would hopefully address some of these challenges for these non-banks and new to financial services players that they can leverage to comply, that's exciting because that is innovation doesn't stop. These guys can come in and say, this is my product. What do you feel is some of the risky areas that we need to address, and what are the services that we need to access at the regulator level, at pay NDO, that would then help us provide a safe to use product or capability or service. And this is what they all asked him, right? We in one of the breakaway sessions with Mr. Tonosela and with Antia, the conversation about they have been there. They've been looking to act it. And the more they get frustrated, they're trying to find ways in which they can enter the ecosystem. And what they're looking to deliver is meat and will change the DAO. So we are excited that inclusion is one of the agenda items of the ecosystem organization. And I think we said it. We have, you guys has done an amazing piece of work. It's such a shame that it was limited to just, so because if you think about ShopRite and his money market, they probably move so much volume between counters in South Africa. And if those were wallets, how far could we have got that wallet put everything in transcended? It was not just going to be a take the cash and suddenly we're blind to what happens. And to your point, Gil, we then able to have as data as that wallet transacts. What is it that our people are transacting more? How do we help them learn a bit more about money? So this exercise, we're reading the beta birds. You bring some chaos, that you also bring some innovation.
But that, and you bring the collaboration. And I think that's the thing that all of you are bringing through. It's about working together. This ecosystem solving together is critically important. But I also like the point that you brought out. You understand that there needs to be rules, there needs to be standards, there needs to be regulation. If you think of in Singapore, their QR code fiasco, where you'd go there and try and scan a code and there was no standards, and eventually they had to say, okay, guys, this is what we need to do in order to get the standards in place. So we also don't want to be on that side where it's a little bit chaotic. You need rules, you need standards, but we also need that innovation to keep up and regulation to keep up with innovation. So James, I know you're not the regulator, but you would also be putting out standards. You also need to put out structures, and as part of the program, what are some of the other enablers or some enablers that from a SOL perspective we need to think about, put in place to actually make this real?
Well, so not stealing the thunder. Well, luckily I can't actually. The session was just before this one.
Yes, so steal it. Go for it. You got a couple
So
of...
digital financial ID, for those of you who missed out on that course, follow up with Karan. Comment that you just made, Richard, and also this morning, I think Vicken mentioned that the new entrants shouldn't be broadly blessed with a perspective or the assumption that they are fundamentally introducing risk. Equally, I think there's a massive opportunity to commoditize certain levels of functionality, how you onboard, how you verify, how you populate the ISO messages required to remain compliant with effective expectations as we go, so that we get a green result the next time round, 2027. Watch this space. How do you do that? It's not just about saying we want to mitigate the risk. We want to have free and fair regulation on activity, on risk profile, consistent across the board. Not bank versus fintech versus retailer versus M&O. Based on the activity and the risk profile consistency first. So the correct regulatory framework. And the hashtag 2 weeks, I think. Then you need the technology enablement. So new standards like the QR Plus standard that is going into proof of standard simulated testing this week. So actual real life progress being made, and those things being integrated with the payment rails, accessible across multiple rails, integrated with the DFID, and then the harvesting of the necessary insights and information to establish industry-wide, ecosystem-wide, and even cross-regulatory boundary-wide fraud management, the fraud utility. Because the ecosystem is stronger as a collective and sharing information appropriately rather than trying to remain with the accountable institution. So these enablers are part of what we will develop around a unified payment platform, which will bring the wholesale and retail, or the high and low value elements together in a more optimized and flexible infrastructure. So there are shared components, common components, and then unique components, because there is a difference. There are different risk profiles, different functionality, but technology today is far more flexible than it was 30 years ago when you built the first RTGS. And we've got great platforms like the underpinnings PayShop to build upon and to now expand. So it's bringing all of those things together and then to package it to go to market, which is that last mile. The example this morning was about highways and then regional motorways and then the suburb interconnections. Ben is going to establish those highways and some of the regional ways, and then everyone else has to build the last mile. We're not going to do it. But we want to make sure that it is developed in such a way that you don't get stuck at Playstone when you're trying to get to say.
Awesome. And I think this is such a topic we can delve into for hours because there are so many dimensions. But the important thing is that the future of finance doesn't have one dimension. It's not only about speed. It's not only about the tech. It is about inclusion. It's about that it is happening right now, and each of us have a role to play. So in closing, I'm going to ask each of you, and I will have to do rapid fire because we're going to be kicked off the stage, and we've got a couple of minutes. But what would your thought be for the audience to motivate them to harness this? What should they do to actually unlock the next wave of the future of finance? Yeah, your one liner.
Meet people where they are, right? And I mean that not just literally, physically, right? That means that you actually have to go to the places where the customers that you're trying to capture are and understand their boundaries. This is a common theme among all of us here up here around Mountain How. But I don't mean just physically, I mean financially. That means offering them a service at a price point they can afford and etc. Also emotionally, right? With the levels of trust and the levels of experience and the level of sympathy they're expecting for somebody they wanted to just summarizing that into be good where they are.
Awesome. Thanks.
Interoperability and vision. And I think we're excited about the platform. So collaborate. Let's get in there with the beautiful ideas and then see if the platform will be able to accommodate. It's the regional and then the roads and the south of it.
I'll follow a thing started by one of our colleagues, Arif. He had 3 Ps, I'll give you 3 Cs in closing. And your last one, collaboration, because this is an ecosystem exercise. I think customer focus. That was mentioned in one of the earlier keynotes, and it was reiterated a couple of times. Stop fixating on the regulation or the technology or whatever. Focus on the customer, because that would drive the correct innovation, right? And figure out that the customers beyond the ones that you currently have is the rest of South Africa and the region to focus on. And the last one, competition to market it. But if you're not figuring out that the world is shifting and you need to react, and we're trying to create the viable platform on top of which to go and innovate and compete, you're going to be found wanting. So leverage the opportunity, because it will be good for the entire ecosystem. And ultimately, the customer, consumer, the businesses will be.
Yeah, I think that is the crux of it, because it's good also for the country. It impacts our GDP, it's going to be the backbone of the country, and we can really, really make a difference. So let's take this modernization, give it momentum through all of you in the room. Thank you so much. Our panelists.